You won't believe what happened when I decided to stay overnight at my own lake cabin, right in my own community. It all started as a peaceful getaway, just me wanting some quiet time by the water. But things took a wild turn fast, all because of one person everyone in the neighborhood calls HOA Karen. She's known for causing drama over the smallest things, always watching, always ready to complain. Little did I know, this time she would take things way too far. The moment I pulled up to the cabin, I noticed her glaring from across the street. It was clear she didn't want me there, even though this is my property and my space to enjoy. You know how some neighbors just can't mind their own business? Well, she's the prime example. What happened next shocked me. She didn't just glare or yell, she actually called 911 on me. Yes, you heard that right. The HOA Karen called the cops, claiming I was some kind of trespasser or worse. But here's where it gets really interesting. When the police showed up and Karen realized exactly who I am, her whole attitude changed. She froze like someone caught in a lie or caught off guard by a secret no one expected. What she thought was just another complaint turned into something way bigger, and I was left wondering what she would do next. Why would she react like that? What's her real problem with me staying at my own cabin? This isn't just about a simple neighborhood dispute. It's about power, assumptions, and the real stories people hide behind their actions. Stick around, because the full story is far from over, and you'll want to hear how everything unfolds. Trust me, this HOA Karen saga is just getting started. I've lived in this community for years, and my lake cabin has always been my escape, a place to relax, unwind, and just be myself. It's not a secret spot or some hidden getaway. It's part of the neighborhood, and everyone knows about it. But with HOA rules being so strict, especially about overnight stays, tensions have always simmered just under the surface. Still, I never imagined it would come to this HOA. Karen has built a reputation around here. She's the type who seems to have a checklist of things to report, always ready to enforce rules with an iron fist. It's like she thinks she's the unofficial watchdog for the neighborhood. But more than that, she seems to have personal reasons for keeping everyone on edge. Over the years, I'd heard stories, people warning me to stay clear of her drama, how she'd escalate small issues into full-blown conflicts. But I never expected she'd go so far as to call the police on me just for spending the night in my own cabin. The moment the officers arrived, Karen's confident, loud complaints turned into awkward silence. It was clear she hadn't expected to find out who I really was, or maybe she did, but the reality caught her off guard. Something about my identity seemed to shake her up. I caught a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, like a secret she was desperate to keep buried was suddenly at risk of coming out. That moment raised more questions than answers. Why would she react like that? Was there history between us? Or was she hiding something deeper tied to this neighborhood's past? As the night wore on, I realized this wasn't just about HOA rules or a simple misunderstanding. There was something bigger going on beneath the surface, and I had just stepped right into the middle of it. The real story was just beginning, and it felt like the calm before a storm. After that night, things didn't settle down like I thought they would. Instead, the tension in the neighborhood only grew thicker. Word spread quickly that HOA Karen had called the police on me, and people started taking sides. Some neighbors sympathized with her strict approach, believing rules were rules. Others, though, began to question why she seemed so obsessed with controlling everything, especially when it came to my cabin. It was like the community was quietly divided, and every glance or casual conversation carried an unspoken weight. What made it more complicated was how HOA Karen's behavior started shifting in subtle ways. She wasn't just enforcing the HOA guidelines anymore. It felt personal. There were rumors she might have a history with my family, or that something about me unsettled her on a deeper level. I tried to reach out to her once, hoping to clear the air, but she shut me down cold, acting like I was the one who didn't belong here. It was confusing and, honestly, a bit frustrating. Meanwhile, the HOA board members seemed hesitant to get involved. Some wanted to avoid making waves, worried that digging into the conflict would only stir up more trouble. Others whispered about the possibility of new restrictions coming to the neighborhood, maybe targeting overnight stays or visitor limits. But no official announcements were made yet. It felt like a ticking time bomb, with rules and resentment both tightening around us. On my side, staying at the cabin became a delicate balancing act. I wanted to enjoy the peaceful retreat I'd always known, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, judged. The police visit had changed the dynamic, and now every time I stepped outside, I wondered if HOA Karen was nearby, ready to cause a scene again. This wasn't just about property lines or HOA regulations anymore. It was about trust, community, and something none of us fully understood yet. And the worst part? I still didn't know exactly what HOA Karen was hiding, but I was about to find out. Days turned into weeks, and the uneasy silence between HOA Karen and me grew heavier with each passing moment. The neighborhood felt like a powder keg, ready to explode. Every visit to the lake cabin became a careful game of watching and waiting. I noticed her watching from behind curtains or lurking near the community mailbox. Always lurking, always judging. It wasn't just about rules anymore. It was a personal battle neither of us wanted to back down from. Then, one afternoon, things took an unexpected turn. I overheard a hushed conversation between HOA Karen and one of the HOA board members. Their voices were low, tense, filled with urgency I hadn't heard before. I couldn't catch every word, but what I did hear hinted at something bigger, something involving the community's past, old secrets, and maybe even a hidden agenda that went far beyond me staying overnight at my cabin. My mind raced. Could all this drama be tied to more than just HOA rules? Was there something in the neighborhood's history Karen was desperate to protect? The pieces didn't fit, and the questions piled up. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl among neighbors about potential new restrictions and even a possible vote to change the HOA's leadership. The tension was palpable, people choosing sides, whispers behind closed doors, and the feeling that something was about to boil over. One evening, as I sat on my cabin's porch watching the sunset, I spotted HOA Karen walking straight toward me. Her expression was unreadable. No longer the angry complainer, but someone conflicted, maybe even afraid. I braced myself, unsure what she would say or do next. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. At that moment, everything felt like it was about to change. The calm before the storm, the tipping point. What would happen next? Would the truth come out? Or would this feud tear the community apart? The answers were just out of reach, and the next move could change everything. Just as I was about to break the silence and ask HOA Karen what was really going on, my phone buzzed with a message that stopped me cold. It was from an unknown number, but the words hit like a punch. You don't know the whole story. Stay away from the cabin, or things will get worse. My heart raced, and suddenly the peaceful lake retreat felt more like a trap. I looked up at Karen again, and for a brief second, I saw something behind her guarded eyes, a warning, maybe even fear. But before I could say anything, she turned and walked away without a word, leaving me with more questions than answers. Why would someone threaten me? And why would Karen, the one who called the police, now act like she was afraid of something? The situation was spiraling fast, and it felt like there was a hidden side to this neighborhood drama no one had dared to mention. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the message and the conversation I overheard. What secrets was Karen trying to protect? Could it be connected to the new restrictions the HOA was pushing? Or was there something darker tied to the cabin itself, something that had been buried for years? The more I dug, the more I realized this was not just about petty HOA disputes. It was something personal, something dangerous. The community was no longer just divided by rules. It was split by fear and suspicion. Neighbors whispered about strange noises near the lake at night, locked gates that weren't there before, and mysterious meetings behind closed doors. The peaceful place I once knew was changing into a place full of shadows, secrets, and threats. And now, with that chilling message hanging over me, I had to decide. Should I fight to uncover the truth, or should I walk away before things got out of control? Whatever happened next, I knew this was only the beginning. The stakes were higher than I ever imagined. The next day, I decided I couldn't ignore the warning or the mystery any longer. I needed answers. I went straight to the HOA office, determined to find out what was really behind all the tension. After some digging and asking the right questions, I uncovered something no one had expected years ago. The land where my cabin sits was part of a much bigger dispute, involving the HOA board and a developer who tried to take over parts of the lakefront. HOA Karen had been deeply involved in those conflicts, not just as a strict rule enforcer, but as someone trying to protect her own interests, and maybe even covering up mistakes from the past. When I confronted Karen about it, everything came out. She admitted that she saw me as a threat because I represented change and transparency, things she feared would expose the HOA's hidden history. The police call, the threats, the silence, all part of her desperate attempt to keep control. But what surprised me the most was how vulnerable she looked when she finally opened up. She wasn't just a Karen trying to stir trouble. She was someone caught in her own web of fear and regret. I realized this wasn't just a battle over rules or cabins. It was about trust, power, and the stories people carry with them. We reached an uneasy understanding, and for the first time in weeks, the neighborhood felt like it might heal. But just when I thought it was over, I found an old hidden letter in my cabin note addressed to me, written years ago by someone I never expected. It hinted at even deeper secrets tied to the lake, the HOA, and my family's history here. Suddenly, the peaceful retreat wasn't so peaceful after all. The story wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Finding that letter changed everything. It made me realize that this lake cabin, the community around it, held stories much bigger than petty HOA disputes. The letter spoke of old friendships, betrayals, and hopes for the neighborhood's future, written by someone who cared deeply about this place. It was a reminder that behind every conflict, there are real people with real histories, and sometimes misunderstandings can grow into something far more complicated. After talking with HOA Karen and seeing her in a new light, I knew that healing would take time. The neighborhood was still divided, but there was a chance for change if people chose to listen instead of judge. I started meeting with neighbors, sharing what I'd learned, encouraging honest conversations about the rules, the past, and what we all wanted for our community. Slowly, walls began to come down. This experience taught me that sometimes the biggest conflicts aren't about the surface issues like overnight stays or HOA complaints, but about trust and understanding. It's easy to assume the worst about people, but when you dig deeper, you find layers of stories and emotions that explain why they act the way they do. And when those stories come out, there's room for growth and even forgiveness. My time at the lake cabin isn't just about having a place to relax anymore. It's become a symbol of connection and change. The HOA Karen, who once called 911, became part of a complicated but real conversation that could help the neighborhood move forward. While some questions remain unanswered, the biggest takeaway is this: every community has its struggles, but with patience and openness, Those struggles don't have to tear us apart. So if you ever face a conflict that seems too big or unfair, remember, there's often more beneath the surface. And sometimes the hardest part is choosing to understand instead of fight. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to see the people behind the problems.